about using a same path and something we're going to talk about URL structures here. Okay, file path can be flat, deep or with several parameters. All seems to work fine. So we don't have a problem what file path should be. All we have a problem is there should only be one file path. Have a clear hierarchy in terms of the directory structure. Use internal links to emphasize the relationship, just like I talked about silo. So you have a mobile phone, so you talk about mobile phone and you talk about different phones on the mobile phone, that's one silo. So you have a tablet, you're talking about different tablets. That's kind of a relationship you are creating amongst them. That's very, very important. Be consistent, very important. You should, again, try to have all URLs should have all lower cases. Should not use underscores. You should avoid empty spaces, and the best way is to use hyphens. So this is very, very important. Sometimes people just have a page like about space us. It's not good. Or you have an about underscore us. No, not good. So whenever you have to have a page from a search point of view, always have hyphens and all in lower caps. Avoid foreign languages URLs. So you should not have any encoding in the URLs. Try to have them as simple as possible. So that where I've talked about this is, again, I'm sharing that how your Ajax website is. Google shared this document how you can make this, and so this is how an example which I talked about, crawl issues, and this is typical, happens with everyone. Your website could be crawled with website.com, http www.website.com, website. So you see, same website at least 4 ways can be crawled. In fact, there are more than 4 ways. So very typical error which our developers would do, they would have category and then they would have another one, category / and this is a very common error. So this one is a very common error you find. You should have a consistency. So if you are linking like this, don't link someplace like this, someplace like this, and someplace www, someplace not www. So some people would say, okay, even if I have linked that way, I am doing a 301 from let's say not www to www, so it shouldn't be a problem. But understand with each 301 or each redirect, you lose a link equity. And that link equity, Google says, each redirect has a 20% loss. So if my page has a 100% value in terms of link juice and I redirect to other page, it will have at least 20% loss. So that's you don't want that. So consistency in the website is important. Solving duplicate www, this is simple. If you are using an Apache, you could have this simple HTTPS access rule, which could say rewrite engine on, HTTP request, and this redirects all non-www pages to www pages. Again, very easy to do this. Another way, trailing slashes. So for example, when I talked about those categories, so this is another way of putting it in an htaccess. Why I'm showing you this is doesn't make sense to have all the redirections or all in htaccess multiple times. You create a rule. That's the simplest and easiest way. The heavier your htaccess file becomes, the slower it goes, and problem it occurs when Google doesn't actually, you start seeing that yes, there is a redirection, but I'm not getting a value out of it. But some redirections are not crawled. So we have seen if you put, let's say, 200 redirection in an htaccess, doesn't go well. So this is where you could use our rules, which are some of these. So this is another way. This is HTTPS. So typically, a lot of e-commerce websites would be opening on HTTP as well as HTTPS. So there is another way you could do this. So this redirects all standard requests to the HTTPS version of the website. So this is another way. And always use canonicals. So how many of you knows what is a canonical URL? Does anybody know canonicals? Very less people. So what Google came with was that a lot of people had these issues where the same URLs was being you have multiple URLs and you really can't do something about it. So Google said that they have a canonical, which is a just simple HTML tag of canonical, which says which one out of these URLs is the primary URL and which one is the secondary. So on a secondary URL, you put that primary URL in a canonical tag. So just a simple canonical tag. Canonical tag is equal to, just an example, canonical tag is equal to page.html. If you put it on that another page, Google will understand that this is not the primary page. The primary page is page.html. And that Google is going to actually value that page more. And even if there is a duplicate, you won't get hit by a penalty or something. So that happens. And then another very important thing is because we run a lot of campaigns, just like if you are running a campaign and you are using a tag UTM source, this kind of a page and that way. These two are creating duplicity. So the same page is being crawled by two ways. So it's always advisable, even if you don't have a canonical issue, put a self-canonical that this is the page and this is the canonical. So for example, I would put in this page 1 HTML only, and that becomes important for us, so that the page is always referred to as the source. This is how the canonical is. So you just, and second thing, when you use canonical tags, never use something like this. The canonical tags are absolute URLs. So if you don't just use relative like page.html, because that's not canonical. You don't use a canonical www website. You should be using HTTP www website. That's how you should be using a canonical. And it's not a bad practice to have a canonical tag on all pages. You never know how anybody is going to link or how a page is crawled, because sometimes some of these WordPress has major issues with these, and sometimes you don't know how the same page gets crawled by different URLs. So this is a good habit to do. You could have canonical tags on all the pages. Of course, as I said, run canonical is primarily for index issue. It is not for crawler base. Search engine needs to see canonicals here. So ergo page needs to be crawled before it has any effect. So you need to have the pages to be crawled. And same with the meta no index. So the pages needs to be crawled. So they should be accessible. Then only these things will work. Otherwise, they won't. Now, besides canonical, I'm going to talk a little bit about paginations. That's another way. Potential for massive progress, especially when combining with sort. So you see men shoes, you have an option like sizes, positions, names. So same page, same content will keep on loading. It's just like, let's say if you have 20 type of shoes with position, they are just getting shortlisted. Eventually on the page, you may be having one or the two just moving up and down. So those are the pages, or maybe a couple of them decreasing. That's one issue which most of the sites have. So sorting can be a problem. And how you can optimize, show more product per pages. So that's one way, start showing more product per pages. And pagination meta tag. So you should have a previous and next and canonical. So this is how a typical meta should be on your web page if you intend to use those filters. And sorting parameters. So these are some of the parameters you can block. You can use asterisk, so which will have this is a wildcard entry. So you can block all the URLs based on that. So block sorting in parameters in robot.txt can be done. So that helps you with that. And so this is another way. Faceted navigation, you have categories, keep on choosing, it keeps on loading, and this is how you can do. And they are just being the same URL. So I just changed the price, nothing else. So the page is just the pricing gets filtered or get sorted price wise. But the product and the content is same. This is another common problem we have with the website. And if I go to the solution for this, again, you could block disallow the index, no index. It's important you disallow, you no index, and tag face like with no follows. So you could have, for example, earrings. You just are having, you could have no follow on the page, because even if on the earring page you have a silver earring, and the silver earring there is another page. Both are having, let's say, 5 same earrings. That's creating a duplicity. Unnecessary crawls, no value to a search. That's where you can block these as well. And you could use no follow. Another example, JavaScript. So hiding faces in JavaScript does not work, because now Google can execute JavaScript and at times can follow the links in JavaScript. So don't block JavaScript, as I mentioned before. JavaScript can add load time, so it's important you have a fast load time. So don't have a faceted navigation. More of people have it with the JavaScript. Doesn't help. It actually slows down the website. This is another way of doing schemas. So this is structured data which I talked about. Just an example, I read this out to you. This is the structured data of a product. Let's say this is a structured data about a Dell UltraSharp 30-inch LCD. Now why this data is important? So I'll just read it for you. So what I'm telling Google is that this is the name of the product, and if you see that next is aggregate rating. So these are the ratings when somebody search, these ratings will show in the search. And studies have shown the top 10 results, even if you are at number 4 or 5, but you have a schema or a ratings or something like that showing, you might possibly have a higher click-through rate. So that becomes very, very important for you to have. And then you could have the offer, you could even show prices in that, you could even show the availability of the product and structured. So you can go to schema.org, they have a whole lot of schemas. It is schema.org is a website or protocols which are honored by all the search engines, specifically Google and Bing, which forms most of it. So this is something you can do. So you could use this with the JSON and head sections. You could separate it from the body content. This is much more easier. The same thing which we saw in schema was bloating the content. So if I go back, you see the same content which we have here. So you see how big this content was, and it was in probably the body, not the header tag, which again makes it slow. So if the same thing you could use, implement it with JSON, and this is you could use the header section and it's not in the body. So that is also valued here, and Google would actually, and it serves the same purpose and easier to implement. Google has a tag manager. You could use GTM where you could use these type of tag managers. So if you type Google tag managers, you could use, you can build your schemas based on that, and you just simply copy the code and paste it. So that's something is easier. Google provides you a tag managers to do that. And there is a structured data tool. So if you go to this URL, this presentation will be made available. So it shouldn't be a problem. So you go to this URL structured testing, you put there your URL and Google will show, for example, it here shows all growth, and this is description, it shows images and everything. So that's the code which you put, and this is here you can see the output. So that helps you from a schema point of view, the Google structured data, and even if you don't understand, there is always lots and lots of examples. You see there is a button on the top just next to fetch URL. Examples, you can do example, you can filter these by cases in Google. So that's something Google provides a lot. So that was, let's now gonna talk about a little bit more on about on-site, and this is not very technical, but it's important to understand some of these parts. This is kind of an optimized page which you have. So a typical page should, what a typical page when you are building, what that page should have. So this is for an e-commerce site, product page. So you have a URL, you have a page title, you have content on the top, you have a couple of keywords. Let's say we are building for a keyword called engagement ring. So what you see is in the URL you see engagement rings. Then you see top of the content there is a word called engagement rings. And then if you see in the images we have used alt as engagement ring, not ring. So we are using alternative keywords, so just not stuffing it with the same keywords. We are using an image, and then this is how a typical page is. If we go back forward, you see how that page comes out. So kind of this is another way, product snapshot, you could have customer reviews, in-depth descriptions, and then there is a hashtag. If you see luxury business card, this is just another example. So you could see how the page would eventually come out and start looking. As I said, title tag is a very, very important factor on your website. So it's important to have a unique title tag. I'll talk why. So include your chosen keyword with the title, do not stuff it, and try to keep it 70 characters. Now Google actually not go by just characters, they look at the pixels. So how many, what is the size? So you can have, for example, it's not based on a character. So example, an L will take less space than a C. So that's how the Google sees as a pixel wise. But not to complicate it too much, you could just use 70 characters, and of course must be relevant with the content. If the content doesn't serve, you should not have that exactly in the keywords. So just don't stuff. As I said, you should have a different title tag. Then besides the title, what you see is the description. This is a meta description. Now, this is where if your description, if you don't have a meta description on your page, Google will automatically pick up from your page. Now when Google automatically picks, you cannot define it. It's just based wherever that keyword is written, whatever the content is. So the point is, if you don't have a good meta descriptions, your click-through rate will be lower. So there are chances that I might be ranking number 1, but I don't have a good meta description. Somebody is actually clicking on number 2. So that becomes important, that meta description. Besides this, meta description serves no purpose. Having meta description or not having meta description is not going to change my rankings. However, it will change my click-through. So you cannot change your rankings if you have too much of a stuff. So think meta description is a description where people would click on something and would like. So include keywords close to the start. Don't repeat more than 3 times. Try to keep it 150 characters. That's important. Must be relevant to the page. Each page should have a different description tag. So even if you have a Google Webmaster Tool or a Google Search Console, which it is known as, it will tell you which pages have duplicate metas, which pages have no metas, which pages have duplicate titles. So you can go there and see if you can fix both. And these are easy fixes. Doesn't require too much of a technique. Body text. So Google loves original high quality textual content, and you could use keyword as I just give you an example of engagement ring, engagement rings. You could have diamond rings, so just not have the word engagement all the time. You could have so you could have synonyms built around the page which talks about that content specifically, and that should not look artificial. As I said, Google algorithm has become very smart in knowing what is the content just written for them and what is the content for search. If the grammar is wrong on your page, that also affects rankings. So it's not that just you have some English and Google will say, oh, it's in English, written okay, 4-time words will rank. No, it doesn't happen. And Google, as said, is actually getting smarter and smarter. Keywords in the URL, as I talked about, this is the keyword which you would have, not like a dynamic URL, so this is something you can have. Heading text, which I again shared, H1 is the most important H tag. Should not repeat the same H tag in the page, so you should always have only one H1 tag on your website, not multiple. And you should always have a sequential H tag, so it should be H1, H2, H3, not H1, H3, H2 or something. The H tag should be sequential. That's very, very important for people to have. But again, don't go bonkers over it. It's just that you need an H1 tag, so you didn't need to have keywords. So just that H1 tag helps user. Just like a newspaper, you have a headline. So that's it. So it just tells you what the news is about. That's simple. Just think that way from a user point. So then we have the links, anchor text. So instead of, you could use different types of links. Just instead of simply saying click here, you could use contextual links, content in it, or keywords. That also helps. This is internally, which will help you get more value, because then you are telling Google that this URL or page is about, let's say, how to optimize your search engine, rather than just having a click here. So again, do not overdo any of this. Think from a user point of view. If I see from a user point of view, even before he clicks, he knows what to expect. So just think that way, that instead of just saying click here, which I don't know what's going to present, this is a much better way of using it. Alt again, I'm not going to tell about most of this. So all images should have an alternate text, and these alternate text should be specifically about the image. Don't just fill it just with the keyword. So you should not have an alternate text just because you're optimizing for engagement ring and that product is not even engagement ring. Just maybe a diamond which you say, okay, these are the kind of diamonds you can buy. You don't put engagement rings. If it's a diamond, put it. If it's a diamond, specifically diamond name of a specifically cut, just name them. The important thing is you should have alt text, but you do not stuff it with the keywords. So, just to summarize, site structure, title tab, description, page copy that is focused contextually, and the build naturally. That's important. Some of the free tools you could use for crawling, these all are free but with some limitations. This is Screaming Frog. You can download this tool. This tool is free to crawl your website for up to 500 pages. The only difference is it does not let you go beyond 500 pages. The tool is like $150. So if you, and you can use it on multiple computers. So this, and then you can, the only thing is that this is a dashboard. So you could use this tool and this will give you lots and lots of information. If you want to know which page doesn't have Google Analytics installed, which page has broken links, which has what kind of response code, jillion of. This is a gem of a tool, very cheap. You could just use it. So Screaming Frog is something which we use it all the time. And then there is another tool which you people can use. Those tool doesn't have, this is an IAS SEO tool. So Microsoft also provides a toolkit for search engine optimization. Most of you might not know it. So you can download this tool again, and runs from your computer and is available for free. This also gives you a fair bit of good idea of what your website is. And this is one of the oldest tools, so Zine. So this again does most of the things, but just like Screaming Frog has better interface, presents you all data in a better way, you could do a lot of things with Zine. So that's something can be done there. These are just gonna take some time to explain. These are just basically how you could use the link juices. Again, will be made available so you can see what kind of a tags and what kind of a link juice will pass, what canonical. So this is just how you could take a decision based on this. If you are using a JavaScript, how you can pass a link. So these are just some of these. Now we're just define your IA and determine canonical URLs. Use breadcrumbs. It's very, very important for you to use. Interlinking, as I said, is mandatory. You should using interlinking. And let the same content appear. So don't. These are the don'ts which I said. Do not have your content appear more than one URL, which I've talked about. and just throw up content without linking to it. Spread your link juice thin. So if you don't have a unique content on a page, don't link from too many places to that page. And of course, archive purely without respect, return server header other than 404. And this is something which you should be trying to do, most of the things. Duplicate content I have talked about, so canonical issues I have talked about. Session IDs, how those can be done, and you could just use page speed I have talked about a bit. And I would end here and put so any questions?
Alright, guys, please give it up for Navneet, Kaushal.